Good morning, nerds. It is I. I've always thought of Pathfinder as D&D but more complicated, and if I'm being honest, it's never really interested me that much. That being said though, I did pick it up on Humble Bundle earlier in the year, and when a friend decided that he wanted to run a Pathfinder game and invited me, I said yes. So, although my first actual session of the game isn't until Monday, I've had a chance to read through the rules and make a character, so I thought I'd give you all a quick run through of how the system works, how I feel about it personally, and what my predictions are for how the campaign and the Pathfinder experience will go. But before we dive into that, please subscribe to the channel and hit the bell for notifications to receive a +1 circumstantial bonus to AC and saving throws. On the surface, Pathfinder is superficially similar to 5th edition D&D, which I'm very, very familiar with, more familiar with than I really want to be, but oh well. You have a character who has a race from a common list of fantasy races: humans, dwarves, elves, halflings, gnomes, half-elves, half-orcs. Pathfinder also has goblins, which is a nice touch, but no dragonborn. Boo. Although to be fair, dragonborn in 5e do kinda suck, so whatever. Anyway, they also have a background which gives them a bunch of, skills and stuff like that, and a class, a choice of 12, that cover a variety of common fantasy archetypes and range in level from 1 to 20. Their abilities are governed by 6 ability scores: strength, dexterity, constitution, intelligence, wisdom, and charisma. Although in Pathfinder, rather than being rated from 1 to 20, they go from 1 to 22. It does hurt my OCD, but whatever, it's not that big a deal. There are 18 skills in which your character can be proficient, although in Pathfinder there are 4 levels of proficiency, those being Trained, you get your level +2, Expert, your level +4, Master, your level +6, and Legendary, your level +8, added to your rolls in addition to an ability score modifier, which are calculated the exact same way they are in D&D. Now, the first thing to call with proficiencies is 1, they go a lot higher, +28 instead of a theoretical +12 in D&D if you get expertise, and 2, there are those 4 levels. When I first heard about this years and years ago, before I even picked the game up, I didn't really think too much of the system. It seemed a bit hackneyed and complicated is a word I'm going to be using a lot in this video. But to my point, it did seem a bit complicated, but I do now kind of see why. I guess the reason it's there is to help distinguish differing proficiency levels of characters of the same or similar level. It does give a subtle edge, but it does also lead to a lot of, I guess you'd say, proficiency creep. Something that I want to see once I actually start playing the game is how being untrained in a skill and having no proficiency bonus, no added level, affects you at low versus high levels. It seems to me that at low levels, you'll be fine, although you may struggle now and then. But at higher levels, no chance. But that does lead me to the next point, core mechanic and difficulty. Pathfinder has almost the same core mechanic as D&D. You roll a d20, add a thing, and compare it to another thing. It's a fairly simple mechanic, and it's common to a great many RPGs. However, in Pathfinder, there is a lot more adding and some much bigger things. Unlike D&D, with its easy to understand but otherwise reductionist advantage-disadvantage mechanic where you roll 2d20 and keep either the highest or the lowest respectively, Pathfinder does everything by adding and subtracting modifiers. You get +2 for this, -2 for this, +1 for that, -4 for that. Pathfinder 2e does seem to try and rationalize this with categories of modifiers. Apart from things like your ability modifier and proficiency bonus, you have 3 main categories of bonuses and penalties: circumstantial, item, and status. And you only use the largest bonus and penalty from each. So the largest circumstantial bonus and penalty, the largest item bonus and penalty, and the largest status bonus and penalty. I don't know if that will make things better or worse. On the one hand, there will be less maths to do, as a lot of modifiers will just get ignored. On the other hand, knowing which modifiers to ignore and which not to ignore is going to get finicky. Although the differences between the 3 categories are at least theoretically intuitive, maybe now and then circumstantial status bonuses might get confused, but item bonuses certainly shouldn't be. But there will still be moments at the table of going, oh damn, what type of modifier is that? Especially when you consider that some penalties, like say the multiple attack penalty or the long range penalty, aren't in any of those 3 categories and will always be counted separately. So I think overall this will end up being much of a muchness. You'll be able to condense some of the maths, But to condense those maths, you'll need to go through a different set of logical operations. We'll see how this goes. Beyond the proficiency system, most of what your character can do is governed by their feats. Now, in D&D 5e, feats are just a straight-up optional rule. Instead of getting an ability score improvement, you can get a special ability, which might also improve your stats, but usually not by as much. And those feats are notoriously horribly unbalanced, as with the rest of D&D 5e's class abilities. Pathfinder has feats for basically everything. Anything that you do in the game that is related to your character's class, or background, or skills, usually comes under some preordained action that might be untrained or trained, or part of like the encounter, exploration, or downtime rule sets, or it's a feat. This structuring of abilities isn't really an issue in and of itself, but what it does mean is that there is a lot of variety to what your character can do. And I'm going to be honest, I think I prefer how Pathfinder does things here. First off, all of the feats are just better balanced than they are in D&D. Your character's progression doesn't really seem to have dead levels in the same way that D&D does. Fun story. One of my players eventually went on to become a GM himself, and he started running D&D 5e because it's what he knows best. I ran him through nearly 40 sessions of it, so he'd better know it. And he started the players off at level 3. Then he jumped them, at their first level up, directly to level 5, because that's how much he hates level 4. I did scold him, I did warn him not to do it, and when, after leveling them up to level 5, he asked, "Hey, is it really possible to get plus 10 stealth for a rogue at level 5? I had to tell him yes it is, and that if he had done the level progression more smoothly, that jump would not have seemed so wild. But alas, GMs will do what GMs will do. Pathfinder, meanwhile, seems to give you at least one, and usually more than one, new feature every level, even if those features are just improvements to proficiency ranks and DCs in various things. Magic in Pathfinder is spell slot based, just like D&D. Your character has a number of spell slots of varying levels depending on their character level, with spell slot levels ranging from 1 to 10 instead of 1 to 9. The number of slots you get is similar-ish. You don't get quite as many low-level spell slots and you get slightly more high-level spell slots, but there are some differences. For starters, spell preparation is much more pure Vancian than D&D 5e. For those of you not caught up on old-timey D&D lingo, Vancian spellcasting refers to spellcasting that emulates the way magic works in Jack Vance's Tales of the Dying Earth, which was a big influence on Gary Gygax, Dave Arneson, and the other early D&D pioneers. Essentially, the way it works is you prepare a spell trapping this little mind demon inside your brain, and then release it. And once you release it, the spell is cast, but it also leaves your head, meaning that you either can only cast a given spell once in a day, or if you do cast it multiple times a day, you have to prepare it multiple times. Now, there are a couple of workarounds for this in Pathfinder if you are playing a prepared spellcasting class, things like some wizard abilities like Drain Bonded Item, but for the most part, you do have to think a lot more about spell preparation. I'm not a huge fan of this. I do actually like that D&D 5e watered down Vancian spellcasting, because it just makes the experience more livable. But the good news for Pathfinder is that you don't have to use Vancian spellcasting. There are other classes that use what they call spontaneous spellcasting, where you still have usually the same number of spell slots, unless you are a Chad sorcerer like myself, in which case you get extras. And while it is part of a general repertoire, meaning that you can't switch out spells willy-nilly, you do get the added bonus of being able to cast whatever spell you want, whenever you want, at least to an extent. There is still the heightening system, where just because you know the base level version of a spell, say the first level version of heal, you can't then cast second, third, and fourth level heals as soon as you get the appropriate level spell slots, the way you can D&D. And this is gonna hurt my brain. Again, there are workarounds for this, like signature spell abilities, for bards, sorcerers, and other spontaneous casters, but it hurts my brain. One thing that Pathfinder does do that's a bit more rational than D&D is the 4 magical traditions. Rather than every class having its own partially overlapping spell list, there are 4 spell traditions that are arcane, divine, occult, and primal, which broadly correspond to wizard, cleric, bard, and druid respectively. This is much simpler, I would say, although I do feel that the spell list is a bit small. Especially for Divine and Occult, which are the ones that I've looked at the most, I did find it a struggle to actually pick spells. I didn't feel like there were enough good options. Maybe that will improve as things go up in levels, or maybe if I actually try and dig up some of the supplements, I'll find some other spells that I like. But for now, I am underwhelmed. There is also a second type of spell in Pathfinder, which is unique to Pathfinder, and that is focus spells. Your character gets a focus pool that starts out at 1 and maxes out at 3. That can be used to cast these focus spell things, which is used for extra abilities that some spellcasters have, and for magic by non-spellcasting classes like monks, rangers, and champions, which is the Pathfinder version of Paladin. You can recover 1 focus point by resting for 10 minutes, although you can only recover the 1 between focus point spends. So if you had, say, a focus point pool of 2 and spent both, you can only get 1 back, but you can't get back the second, unless you only spend focus points 1 at a time, which is boring. This is a decent system, and helps get rid of things like half-casters from D&D 5e, or the god-awful 1/3 casters that you got with the fighter and the rogue subclasses, so that's nice. One thing that I'd like to comment on is, as I'm thinking of some of the spells, and I should really have covered this in modifiers, but a lot of the abilities that you get seem a bit weaker. Something like Bless, which gives 3 allies that you pick advantage on attack rolls and saving throws, is actually pretty powerful, but the equivalent Bless spell in Pathfinder has a smaller range that you can theoretically expand with an action, but it only gives like a +1 bonus to attack rolls. In fact, there are a lot of these really small like +1, -1 modifiers that on a D20 don't really seem that impactful. I'm currently running Cyberpunk Red, and Cyberpunk does also use modifiers, a lot of -1s, -2s, +1s, +2s. Cyberpunk Red doesn't make any effort to rationalize those modifiers in the way that Pathfinder does, but it also doesn't have as many. And even when it does have them, the fact that these modifiers are on a D10 means that they are effectively twice as impactful as Pathfinder ones. So yeah, I'm not so keen on all these like +1, -1s here and there. They don't feel very impactful. Maybe I'll be completely proven wrong, but we shall see. The one place that they might prove useful is for things like the critical system. In D&D 5e, there are actually no official criticals and fumbles except for the critical hit on a natural 20 attack roll. However, many groups, my own past group included, did house rule them in. In Pathfinder, things work a little differently. If you succeed on your check by 10 or more, you get a critical success, and if you fail by 10 or more, you get a critical failure. And natural 20s and natural 1s do have a slight impact on the game as well, but that's kind of beside the point. The point here is that these modifiers that you get do impact your critical chance, and we will see how the critical system goes. I don't think it'll be too bad. The maths for it is actually pretty simple. I don't think that'll be an issue, and having more concretized criticals and fumbles will, I think, be a good thing to have. Okay, there actually is one more core game element that I should probably discuss, and that's combat and the action economy. In D&D 5e, you technically have like 5 actions or something. You have your action, your bonus action, your move, your free object interaction that everyone forgets exists, and your reaction. In Pathfinder, you get 3 actions and a reaction. On the one hand, that does streamline things. On the other hand, it doesn't. The fact that you can, say, do 3 attacks in a round, 3 spells in a round, 3 whatever's in a round, will probably lead to some slowness. In practice, though, since some things you can do take 2 or 3 actions, you won't necessarily be doing 3 things on every turn, which is nice. That being said, you absolutely can do that, even with the multiple attack penalties that you get on your second and third attacks, those being -5 and -10, barring special abilities and agile weapons that reduce those penalties. D&D 5e has notoriously slow, clunky combat, and I suspect the Pathfinder will be better, but not much better. A lot of the rules seem a lot more sane and streamlined in places, but there is also going to be more to get through. Again, there will be crunching modifiers. And potentially, if you're doing 3 attacks or 3 spells in a turn, that is going to slow things down no matter what. Likewise, there are a bunch of other awkward rules like your initiative can move, so when you're reduced to 0 HP, your initiative goes to the turn before whichever initiative brought you to 0. I see why they did this. It means that your allies basically have an entire round to revive you before you start making your death saves. But, it's just weird and painful and awkward, and I hate that rule on an instinctual level. Beyond having a chance to simply read the rules, I've also done Session 0 and I have made my own character. In my video last week, when I briefly touched on Pathfinder at the end of that, I said I was planning to play a spoiled noble gnome bard. But actually, as I was editing the audio for that video, I had a better idea. Okay, maybe not a better idea, but an idea. I decided to actually play something that I've never done before. Like, actually never done before. And that's play a good person. Like an actual, wholesome, like loveliest person you ever meet, lawful good kind of character. And so I threw out the Nepo Baby Bard and brought in an angelic sorcerer, much to the confusion of everyone who knows me because I am usually a bit evil. I've even joked from time to time that I usually play charismatic sociopaths, which is strange because I'm not even remotely charismatic. Anyway, I'm looking forward to playing this new character. It will be interesting. 1, there is the roleplay challenge of it. 2, you get to play a healer. That should be interesting. And 3, as I said in that video, this will be the first time in nearly a year that I will be a player. As I said, the character will be a angelic sorcerer with versatile human ancestry, and I ended up picking field medic for the background. I have also taken pains to make sure that I have no damage dealing or debuffing spells and cantrips, with the sole exception of heal, which does technically do damage to undead, but whatever. It can't be helped. I want to do healing, I need the heal spell. That's just how it is. I did give my character a dagger, although I do have 2 days to change the sheet, so I might actually remove the dagger. That'll be fun. But it's fine. I get 16 hit points at level 1. It's fine. I'm sure I'll never need to actually, cause another creature harm at any point from like levels 1 to 11 or whatever we're doing in this campaign. So to wrap this video up, Pathfinder seems both more and less janky than D&D. There are physically more rules to go through, which is going to cause problems and slowdowns at the table. However, those rules are generally better written than the D&D counterparts. This is definitely going to be a very combat-heavy system because the game doesn't really give you a whole lot else to do, but I'm sure I'll be able to have fun with it. I guess my final few predictions would be first that learning and mastering the rules is actually going to be a very important part of this game. There are a lot of places where just having a bad memory or bad mathematical skills will trip you up. That brain power, system mastery, like mathematical aptitude is going to be very important. Second, as I said, this is going to end up being very combat heavy. Although some of the skill abilities do give you, non-combat options, they don't seem especially deep, if I'm being honest. There are more options for social interaction than there are in, say, Cyberpunk Red, but that's not saying much. And all of that does just come down to roll once, add a thing, compare it to a thing. And even then, all of those systems seem poorly implemented. Crafting hurts my skull. I took one look at it, went, oh god, wait, what's going on there? Is it you do 4 days of prep, then you do your roll, then for each day you reduce the cost to make the thing by giving them, what's going on here? Yeah, I did not pick the crafting skill, and I hope nobody else did either, as it just looks like pain. Prediction 2, not much to do outside combat. Prediction 3, though, is that when you are in combat, you will have a lot to do. A lot of the abilities are well thought out. They do go well together. There are synergies. And the 3-action system does mean that you can potentially get a lot done in a single round. So yeah, those are my predictions. I am curious, though, to hear what people who've actually played Pathfinder think. How correct am I? What's something that I'm missing? Please tell me. But with that, this video is a wrap. Thank you all so much for watching. Operation Large But Painful is proceeding, albeit slowly. Like I said, it's going to be early next year when it comes out. If you enjoyed this video, though, then please like it, share it with your friends, and leave a comment down below. What's your opinion of Pathfinder? Have you played it? How did you find it? Any tips and tricks for noobs like myself? If you'd like to see more videos like this one, including videos of my actual experience of Pathfinder in play, then please subscribe and hit the bell for notifications. It really does help the channel. Now, I have a couple of hours to finish prepping my Cyberpunk game for tonight, and to hassle my gym about changing the feat that I got from my heritage. So, I'm off to go do that. In the meantime though, thank you all so much for watching, and until I see you next, farewell.